Good morning.
Good morning.
This is the 6th of February, 2023.
Actually, it's the 5th.
It's the 5th. Okay, thank you. I'm a
Judith,
day off and a dollar short.
Judith is looking into the future.
So, we have a lovely conversation to share with you today. And the title of our talk is What Lies Beneath the Surface? And we're talking about the surface of you. What lies beneath the surface of you? And so let's begin, first of all, with an opening prayer.
I like that.
And would you like to do that with me?
Sure.
Alternate? Okay.
There is one power. That one power in the universe is operating in and through each of us all of the time. Knowing that there is a power for good in the universe that is operating in and through us all of the time, we can use it. And we choose to in this very moment.
We know that the creative power of God lies within us. And we know that it is all powerful and always available. So we give thanks for filling out that discussion with our conversation this morning, knowing that with God all things are possible.
And together we say,
And
so
it
it is. So we have a great talk today.
We do.
And for those of you that are joining us now, who joined us earlier, and we actually did an entire lesson, which we thought was really very good, and we didn't record it. So Judith actually decided to move to the 6th rather than the 5th.
And do it again.
Do it again, yeah. It's a day later, and we're doing this talk again. And hopefully it'll be even better this time than it was the first time. We're drinking coffee this time to stay awake.
Yes, we are. And so I'm going to begin with a quote from Ernest Holmes.
One of my heroes.
Yes, and his book, Take the High Road to Happiness. I don't know if it's a book or an article, but it's from Take the High Road to Happiness. And in it he says, he gives a metaphor for how this thing called the law of mind works. He says, the wick of your individual life runs deep into the oil of pure being. No matter what confusion appears on the surface of your life, there is always a place of calm at the center of your being. No matter how turbulent the waves may be on the ocean of your experience, beneath there is a changeless peace.
That's
and so
powerful.
it is, and that is true. And before we get into your wonderful metaphor, which was actually Ernest Holmes' metaphor, but you've elaborated on it, I would like to share that this spoke to me so much because with scuba diving, I would always notice that sometimes, squall comes up, and when you're wanting to dive, and the waves are getting big, and the wind is turbulent, but when you go down to the depths, and it doesn't have to be very deep. I mean, it can be 20 feet. And suddenly everything is calm. The seaweed might be moving a little bit more, but everything is calm down there. So I didn't care if it rained or not. It's just like, let's get down there and it'll be calm and beautiful. And, the same is true for us, no matter what waves of turmoil, because we came here for this life to experience challenges and to grow through them, grow from them. And so it's often turbulent at the surface, but there is always within the ground of your being, and he has that being with a capital B, meaning it's of God. It's always peaceful and calm.
When you first read that to me, I thought about the wick, and that's the part of our consciousness that shows. And it's ignited by our desire and our passion. And it's fueled not by the outside, but by the inside, from the inside. What I thought was most powerful about this metaphor was the idea that this unseen substance, this formless, shapeless, unseen substance below the surface, fuels this thing called the flame that is on the wick. And what I'm impressed with is how often we are afraid that the fire will go out. We're afraid that someone will extinguish it. And sometimes people get close to us in ways that are negative, and they blow on that fire, and that fire flickers, and we think, oh my God, I've got to be careful. And we learn to be afraid that the flame will go out, and when the flame goes out, we will be out. We will be done. The truth is, the flame is simply the outer expression of the inner desire being in action. And that's really, really important, because what I see in our world today in particular is that more and more we're operating out of fear, and the fear that the flame will be extinguished. The flame will be somehow there won't
Blown
be,
out.
Yeah,
Probably blown out.
yeah. And with Ukraine and all of the things happening, there's no quote safe place for the flame. Except that, as you mentioned in your metaphor, which I love, which is beneath the surface of the water, there is a kind of calm and a kind of order, a perfect order,
Perfect order.
that cannot be disturbed. And the most interesting thing about that metaphor is when you dive through the water, no matter how much water there is, there's room for you in it. In fact, you belong. And so as we have a desire to do something, a desire to achieve something, a desire to see something, we express that desire, and that ignites the flame.
I belong there as long as I have oxygen.
Yes. Well,
Much like your metaphor,
Yeah.
or Ernest Holmes' metaphor of the wick. You define the oxygen as what?
desire.
Desire. Right. So, but if you don't have the desire, if you wait a day or two and you don't see the object of your desire manifesting, and you say, "Oh well, I give up. That didn't work," there's no more oxygen.
Right.
There's no more desire. You give up the desire, the candle is out.
So no one on the planet can give you the oxygen you need for your desire to be realized, and for the
Except
flame,
you.
except you, and for the flame to reach its height. You're the person who has to say yes to that. And every time you say yes to your desire, the flame gets stronger and the flame gets brighter. But you're not the flame. The flame is the expression of the thing that you want to see, and it's exciting. And so I would ask us all this week to think about how often we are worried about being extinguished, when all we really need to do is to ignite or reignite that fire, give it the oxygen of desire, the oxygen of belief that all things are possible, and watch what happens. How many times have you had an experience that wasn't possible, that you now look back at and say, not only was it possible, it was one of the greater experiences of my life?
And how many times have you had someone question your desire or your ability to receive it or achieve it, and the flame goes out? Because suddenly you doubt yourself also. You doubt the ability to have this thing you want to be, do, or experience.
We have to stop walking around saying, does anybody have a match? We have to ignite the fire. And when somebody says, I have no matches, it doesn't mean we don't have desires. It doesn't mean we can't ignite the flame of life that allows us to create. I'm going to shift gears here a bit, and because we watched a documentary recently, and I'm trying to remember what the total of it. There were 5 or 6 musicians in the documentary, every one of which had major successes. But here's what I want you to hear. Every one of them was told by the recording company what they shouldn't do, how long the song should be, the nature of the song, and everything about the song, because they knew best. However, they weren't singing, they weren't playing, they weren't even writing, but they knew best. How often has it happened to you that you have a desire, someone else tells you how it ought to be played, and you play it by their rules, or play as best you can, having filtered through everything that has to get filtered through to do it the way you've been asked to do it. And at the end of the day, what you say is, this isn't very good, and nobody wants it. The story, true story, every one of the musicians fought to get the songs the way they wanted them produced, to write the songs the way they wanted them to be written, and every one of them was a greater success because of it.
And what I'd like to point out is those so-called experts are basing it on the past.
Yes.
They're basing it on what has worked before. And so they're businessmen. That's what business people do. They project the future by looking at what's worked in the past. You can never create something new if it has to be like the past.
Exactly.
And that's what these artists were trying to do. They said, no, I want to give my talent, my vision, my ideas. And if we can't do that based on the past, it would not be new or original.
The producers, the directors, the all-knowing people that were heads of the record company were looking at the flame. They weren't creating the flame. They didn't have the desire. They didn't have that passion. And so when you have the passion and the desire, and you can ignite that flame, and keep it ignited, you can see yourself clear to the creation that you want to see, or you simply defer to those people that have seen flames before and can tell you what they're all about.
Right.
And the truth is, nobody can tell you what your life should be like except you. And no one can tell you what your divine expression should look like except you. To others, it may not seem very divine, but to you, it may even be why you're here. You know, we're not here to produce a love song that somebody else wrote.
Right.
We're not here to produce our love song with somebody else's rules and instructions. We're here to produce and to create our own love song that has us love life so much we can't wait to be a part of it, that we can't wait to continue it, and it becomes contagious.
It's so that's so important to know. Even when you give others advice, like you've lived on the planet longer than maybe some of your younger friends or relatives who have an idea and they want to do something, and you, from your experience, think this is a really bad idea, based on what I've experienced in my life. If you tell someone that, all you do is just tromp on their dreams. It's better to let them do what they're going to do and let them make a decision if they want to do more of that or try more of that. My grandson is of Japanese heritage, and he's crazy about Japanese swords and knives and that whole Japanese tradition. And he was coming out of the Air Force, and he decided what he wanted to do in life was make swords and knives. And, you know, his grandfather and I were going, I see.
Okay.
How would that work?
Right.
But he got actually a scholarship from the Air Force to do a 6-month internship with a well-known televised knife and sword maker. And so he actually got 6 months to go do an internship with her. And what he discovered is he did not want to live her lifestyle. Which was living in a trailer and going from show to show around the country and trying to make enough money to make more knives. And it was a hand, what do they call it, a hand-to-mouth kind of existence. And he's just said, I don't want to live that way. I'm sure he's still passionate about knives and swords, and making them was great fun, but he got to decide himself.
But
No,
that's
not what I thought I wanted.
once he was on the cutting edge, he found
Yeah.
that he didn't like it.
Yeah, so now he's getting his degree in business management.
Right, but the lesson in that story is we need to have the lessons to learn what we need to learn from those lessons in order to be able to have the life that we've decided to have. I was talking to a young man recently, and I said, he's going to college, and I said, what kind of courses are you taking? He said, well, I'm taking what are called the humanities. And I said, that's great. He said, you're saying it's great?
Everybody else tells me
Everybody
why.
told me that I shouldn't do it. And I said, well, because you're part of humanity, and because the things you're learning are going to have such extraordinary benefits for you outside of work, you'll be able to have as rich a life outside of work as you do in work. And he said, I've never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. So poetry, music, history, all of that stuff is what you learn in the humanities that doesn't necessarily apply to. So what's it going to make you? So you're going to get your degree in what, and how much money will you make? As if somehow it would be the equivalent of...
As if it were a trade school.
Yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
so when somebody says to you, so that's your light? Yeah. Well, how high is it? It's as bright as it needs to be. It's as bright as my desire. And is it the light that you can see by? Probably not. The light that you're going to light draws from a source that is so extraordinary that it will never run out. And you can have that for all of time. Because I believe, and I think Judith does too, that in fact, when this life is extinguished, your life isn't. And so since your life is not extinguished, when the flame goes out, you simply stop having that flame in this existence, but you continue to be the light.
That ground of being, that oil.
Yeah.
That oil is
The
still
formless,
there.
shapeless, invisible oil that is life, that is the constant.
Precisely. And that reminds me, I was examining one of my favorite Bible quotes again, because when we talk about creating, we need to know that the Creator loves our creations. You know, He loves, that's what we're here for. But we tend to get stuck in what we learned as children, or I did, that God may choose to honor your prayer and give you that, and may choose not to. And in my experience, more times it was not. And so I just figured God didn't want me to be, do, or have that. And so I never knew what God might want for me. But so that that can have you undoing most of your prayer. You know, well, I'm not sure God will want this. And I don't pray, dear God, please let me have or let me get anymore anyway. Because we pray, Ernest Holmes said that ground of being with a capital B is below the surface and it's always calm. That's the part that we are actually calling forth. You know, that's the oil, that's the energy. And then we have the idea and the desire, and that strong desire is the oxygen that fuels that flame. So, and God never says no. The universe never says no.
Right.
If this does not materialize, it's not God that hasn't come through for you. You have not come true for
To
you.
your dreams.
You have to, we say, have the consciousness to receive that. But that means the consciousness just means you believe you can and will have it and deserve it. And so that all goes into this. And so one of my favorite Bible quotes is, "It is the Father's good pleasure to give to you the kingdom, and all things added to that." Now, I used to always interpret the kingdom as our spiritual awareness, our connection with God, and where we're one with God. And that is still true in my new understanding. But what was really new for me is to realize that kingdom is this ground of being that's already there. We don't have to wait for God to give it to us. God's already given it to us. It is just part of being born, spirit or human. That ground of being is the kingdom, and it's already given to you. And all things added unto it is dependent upon you and what you focus on, what you expect, what you desire. That's how we create our own experience. You know, everybody who's ever achieved anything, humble or great, it started with a desire to
Absolutely.
be, do, or have it.
Yeah.
Tell them about your new book to be soon to be published, or books.
Yes, a really fine person and a good friend has written a couple of hundred haikus, which I didn't
Could
even.
I say what haikus are?
Yeah, because I didn't know.
Are you going to say
No,
what it
you,
is?
you say, please say.
Because I sometimes forget people don't know what a haiku is.
Not a loku, a haiku.
It's a Japanese form of poetry that is 3 lines long, and so it has a form, 7 syllables, 5 syllables in the middle, and 7 syllables at the last. That's the only rule. And
But hers are elegant.
spiritual.
They're spiritual.
And
They're
magnificent
beautiful.
and fun.
They're funny. They're joyful. And she asked me if I would be willing to contribute art with the haiku, and I thought, oh my God, what an invitation! And so we're putting together. I think it'll probably be 12 volumes of 30 per month, and of the haiku and my artwork together in combination. The first thing we were told by by publishers and people is art doesn't sell and poetry sells not at all. So don't even bother. So why are we doing this? The flame is bright. The flame is intense. The flame is beautiful. If no one buys it, then no one buys it. But I need, and the friend who's created the haiku Guru Nam,
Khalsa.
Khalsa, she believes in what she's doing. And so you see, this is a labor of love. And even if nothing works as a result of the labor of love is its own teacher, we'll have something that has fed us whether we sell it or not. If we're going to listen to other people, could we listen to their heart? And if their heart's not open, why are we listening? We often listen to people who have no heart in the game. And since they have no heart in the game, they have nothing to help us gain. And there's nothing we can do that'll be useful for us. And that's really, really important. Before we end on this, though, I wanted to play with one more thing. And we talk a lot about the flame as it relates to work, as it relates to getting something done, as it relates to accomplishments. Without meaning to, we really often think about the flame as our duty or our work. I would ask you to look at it another way. Imagine that all of life is play, and imagine being told how to play. imagine that how much that would no, you need to walk straight if you're going to do this. You need to stand tall. You need to dress this way. You have to be careful what words you use. Be careful you don't slip. Now have a good time and just play. See, play includes falling down, stumbling, making mistakes, laughing forward, having your life unfold in a magical way. People, if they're not careful because of wanting to take care of you, will steal all of that from you, not meaning to protect you. And so you're going to have to protect yourself with the knowledge that your desire is your shield. Your desire, your passion will protect you. And you can learn from that how best to express you. Are you going to make mistakes? Are you going to fall down? Absolutely. My mother used to say all the time, be careful with that. You'll put your eye out. Be careful with that. You'll do this. And I know she was concerned. What she didn't know was that I went out with my friends and we had BB gun wars. And we shot each other with BB guns. And we came home and she said, now be careful, you don't put your eye out. And I thought, well, so I got two. But the bottom line is, when you play, you make up rules, some of which you have to change, some of which can put an eye out, some of which you won't. And play is really learning how to be in the situation that you're in the way that is the most enjoyable for you, that brings you the most amount of satisfaction, that teaches you the most, that gives you the most. It's not about, we played hard, and here's what's important. Not that we had a good time, but we played right. We played according to the rules. So I'm going to invite all of you to this week not play by the rules. And I don't mean break any. I mean take a look at the rules and ask yourself, are these rules that I have for me that really work? Or are these rules that someone has given me as hand-me-down rules that don't make any sense? And if they don't, get rid of them. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard the old Thanksgiving story. I heard it years and years ago when I was first working in mental health. And this went 3 generations. And fortunately, all 3 generations of the family where this story existed were together on one Thanksgiving. And the grandma was fixing a roast, and she cut off the end of the roast and she put it in the pan and she cooked it. And one of the family members who didn't understand why this happened said, why do you cut off the end of the roast and throw it away? And she said, I really don't know, but my mother did that. So they asked her mother. She said, I don't know why either, but my mother did it. So they went to the grandmother and they said, why did you do that? She said, the pan wasn't big enough.
That is so.
How many of you are cutting off part of your life because the pan isn't big enough and you're the one who makes the pan? You're the one who creates the size of the pan you're going to cook your life in. Whether you're going to roast it, you're going to cook it, you're going to bake it, you're going to add sugar, you're not going to add sugar. And, we have to be careful what we listen to and whether we believe everything we listen to that can either add to our life or keep us in fear of it. I've been told that sugar can kill you. I've been told that alcohol certainly can kill you. I have been told about so many things that can kill me. And then how old was the woman we just heard about?
We just read a true story about the oldest, I think she was the oldest woman alive at the time, 122 years old.
Yeah.
And when they asked about her lifestyle, and by the way, she rode a bicycle till she was 100. And she said she was in love with wine. She smoked cigarettes until she was 120. And that's only because she got tired of asking, her vision was going, and she got tired of asking people to light her cigarettes. And what else? She loved sweets.
Yeah, right. I'm not suggesting that we drink and smoke and eat sugar.
No, we're not.
But what I am suggesting is that we're told every day about the things to be afraid of.
And another thing she said that I am paying attention to is she said, I find a way to take my pleasure every day. Like she said, she loved sweets and she loved wine, and she would take her pleasure, deservingly so. Like, I deserve this. Mm-hmm. And so what if we did that?
I don't think we're dying from as much from the foods we eat as we are from the fear we have.
I agree.
About everything that could possibly take us in. Every day there's a new research study that says, and that's deadly. So I'm not suggesting that it isn't. I'm just suggesting use your own mind, light your own candle, light your own wick. Fan the flame with desire and with passion and with excitement. And why wouldn't you want to do that? This is your life. I think that's going to wrap us up for today.
I think it does.
And it's been a joy being with you. I hope that you'll enjoy the recording. For those of you that want to support this ministry, you can always reach us on CSL.
Palm Beaches.
.org.
Exactly.
and donate as much as you want or as little as you want or donate nothing. But we're going to be here. We love what we do, and we love that you're able to join us. Thank you, and so it is.
End the recording.
And Meeting Pearl.